He's far from being a young man, his muscles are not strong. So call him old and frail then, you won't be too far wrong. But there's a spirit in him that's sane and strong and sure. The muscle or the spirit, the muscle or the spirit, say which should count for more.
I'm Norman Kember, and this song is about me.
I was angry. I was very angry. I was both angry and frustrated. If I was a violent sort of person, I would have kicked the cat. But I'm not, so I didn't. I counted up to 10. In March 2006, Norman Kember was released unharmed after being held for more than 3 months as a hostage in Iraq. And as soon as he was safe, the media turned from portraying him as an innocent victim to suggesting that he was some kind of silly old fool, and I knew very well that he was nothing of the kind. I might have simply grumbled about it to like-minded friends. I might have written an angry letter or two to the papers. But I did want to express my views in a way that would make people think about the issues. And so I wrote a song. Christian peacemaker teams have been operating in conflict zones around the world since 1984. They only go where they are invited by local peace activists. There had been 9 successful visits to Iraq before the mission involving Norman Kember. It's quite difficult to say where a tune comes from. Often the tune and the words develop in tandem. And I suppose the first few lines, starting as I did from the things they were saying about Norman, calling him old and frail, and getting into a friendly key. D is a friendly key. A lot of my songs are in C, G and D and A, the sort of sharp keys, which if somebody plays guitar, I know that they like the chords. Occasionally, when I want to be really solemn, I go into a flat key and guitarists don't like it and reach for the capo. I use the same sort of building blocks that a lot of musicians and songwriters use, but I do find that if I'm getting close to doing something that's too predictable, I just like to add a little something that's not quite so predictable. And I find this useful if when I'm writing something I can manoeuvre it so that the last line of something is repeated, or every verse has the same last line, so that if people are listening to the song even for the first time, they can spot a repeated pattern or a repeated line. They know it's coming. These aren't huge dramatic effects, a repeat of the pattern and then a varying of it. I think they just keep interest without being too disorientating. Because what I do is very basic and straightforward. But even so, it's a mystery in that I know my brain is working and I'm counting and I'm thinking of words and I'm thinking of rhymes and I'm thinking of rhythms and I want a word with 3 syllables here and so on. So there is the calculatedness going on, and this must apply to every poet, everybody who writes verses. There's a calculation going on, and then there's also when you know that you have happened on a beautiful phrase or a phrase that is just right for what you want to say. And that is quite exciting. Again, the words aren't unusual, they're not strange words nobody's heard before, but you've just happened to have put them together in a pattern that says what you want to say neatly. A conventional phrase often just has 4 beats in a bar, 4 bars in the phrase, which is instantly recognisable, but it can also be a little too predictable. One good way of varying that I found in this song was to repeat one of the bars, to have a 5th bar, and this gave me the chance to repeat one of the lines in the words as well. and so really make people more likely to think about that line when they hear the song. The words of the song start from my central point, that vulnerability is not the same thing as weakness. And somebody who is not physically strong and somebody who is not violent can have a strength that Norman, I believe, had and has. The second verse contrasts this with the strength of the soldiers who have firepower and enthusiasm and sincerity, but what they can do is fight. The third verse brings in the people of Iraq who have had a lot of suffering due to war and strife and desperately need peace, and asking, do they need more of the soldiers, or do they need people like Norman who will understand and try to build peace? And then that necessitated a final verse in which I turn to the leaders and say, when will you understand? Any fool can break things, a wise man learns to mend. I bring in Jesus and Gandhi as two very well-known, non-violent, wise people, and then just turn the question to the listener and challenge all of us to do more than wealth and weapons can do. Well, recording the song gave us a chance to embellish it with a little bit more than my keyboard playing. We had a drummer, Mark, a very professional drummer, who managed even to cope with my occasional 5 beats in a bar. We had Ruth, who's a very accomplished flautist. The musical interlude between the verses gives the flute a chance to show what it can do, and I think that added a lot to the song. Margaret's bass playing gave the music a stronger pulse and a bit more depth, and Edwin not only played guitar, but also brought his own homemade percussion allophone to just add a little something to the accompaniment.
As a lifelong peace activist, I was one of the many people who were frustrated when the million-plus demonstration failed to prevent the government's decision to go to war against Iraq. So in 2005, I decided to take my peacemaking a little further, and I went to Iraq to meet some Iraqi people to reassure them that many in the West were opposed to the occupation of their country. Unfortunately, this trip led to my kidnap, and I was held captive for 3.5 months. On release, many people said that I was naive, that I was foolish, and so I'm grateful that this song is a counter-argument to that position.
He's far from being a young man, his muscles are not strong. So call him old and frail, then you won't be too far wrong. But there's a spirit in him that's sane and strong and sure. The muscle or the spirit, the muscle or the spirit, say which should count for more. When all our wealth and weapons have done the most they can, how will they measure up? How will they measure up to a vulnerable man? The young men in their thousands with weapons in their hands, they're burning to bring freedom to those in foreign lands. But there's a weakness in them that cripples each brave deed. They're trained and honed for battle, trained and honed for battle. It's peace that people need. When all their wealth and weapons battered people, worn out with strife and pain, desperately seeking to live their lives again.